So here we are back down in sunny / hot Texas. It's actually cooled down a little bit, and I want to do the last few little wrap up things on the 88 Cali Coupe. And I figured these are a couple things that you guys would probably be pretty interested in. The first one is actually painting the engine bay with the motor in the car. So I'm going to be going through on how I prep, get things cleaned up and organized so you guys can actually make your engine bay look a lot better. And if you guys have kind of a pre-91, pre-90, depending on whether or not you have a single stage versus base clear paint job, the single stage cars definitely had it worse in the engine bay. You can see where all the paint kind of has faded slashed, I don't know, just not adhered properly. This car is a respray, so I'm thankful that they actually resprayed right down to the edge of all the fenders, so that's going to give me an easy area to mask off. So the fenders are going to stay untouched. We're going to prep everything else. We're going to pull everything off the inner aprons, and the strut towers will work around the caster camber plates. We're going to be taking everything off the back part of the firewall above the seam. I'm not going to worry about below. That's getting into a whole different can of worms, so we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to worry about the main areas and of course the Rad Support, which is going to make this car look a lot better. One other thing that I want to do is I want to fix this crease right here too, probably from a fender bender that the car had back in the day. So with the battery out, we'll be able to take care of that and just get things pretty because, you know, with the Cervini's hood, it's all finished and nice on the underside, and the rest of the car is nothing short but beautiful. So we'll get that done. Might have to do something about this AC compressor as well, because it looks like someone tried to give it a coating, or maybe it was like a reman one and just the coating's coming off. So maybe I can get that cleaned up a little bit. And otherwise, because this is a pretty clean overall motor, you know, all the seals and gaskets and everything else have been done on it, new water pump. You know, this car has actually been gone through quite a bit. It's one of the main reasons why I bought this car is because so many little things were like just those maintenance and tedious items were already taken care of. So I was kind of like ahead of the game in that sense. And I think a lot of guys out there, you guys might have a really nice motor that you put in, or maybe you got the car painted but didn't want to take the motor out, and you're kind of left in a similar situation where you wish your bay looked just a little bit better. You're going to see I got a couple products sitting here, and all duplicolor stuff that you can get from AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Part Source, whatever, you name it. Purple Scotch pad, some 3M tape, of course we'll be using some other masking materials like some plastic, maybe some paper, and we're going to get this done, and it's going to look really good in the end. And these are all, like I said, products that you can use. You can opt to get a better clear, something, you know, you really don't need UV resistant clear in something like your engine bay, because it's not like the engine bay is exposed overall. You could get away. Some people actually just paint their engine bays with single stage. They don't even put clear in there. And, you know, once stuff's in your bay, stuff is pretty much there. You know, it's not like it's going to be abused necessarily or anything else. So it's kind of up to you on the extreme that you want to go. But in this case, when we're trying to touch things up with the motor in the car still, well, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a lot damn better, but it's not going to be perfect. So let's get into this video and start tearing into this thing and getting it ready and prepped so that we can get this thing painted up and looking a million times better. We are going to get back into some DIY. I know I took a little bit of a minute there with the chocolate fox and trying to get everything organized because, well, I got my 1991 Dutch Coupe down from Canada that I had at the show. And one thing that I want to do is I want to give a big shout out to Fox Resto and to Gearhead 704 for, well, they didn't give me a VIP spot. I won the VIP spot, but you know what? If I hadn't have won that spot, I don't know if I would have made the trek and gone through with everything else. So it definitely motivated me. And thank you guys again for that opportunity. So for anybody out there, you can't win if you don't play, as they say, right? So managed to get the car down to the show, had a great time. Shout out to War Admiral. I actually got his shirt on. I don't know if you can see that on my back, but Tom, you're a phenomenal guy. Your car is just nothing short but unreal. And thank you for taking care of this car and getting the logistics sorted, because I actually flew to and from the show, and he was the man who managed to find a way for me to get this car back down here to Texas. So thank you to all those people. So before we dive into that engine bay, just wanted to let you guys know there's going to be quite a bit of content coming on this car. You know, despite the fact that I drove it pretty much all of last season and it made it all the way down to the show, this car's got some gremlins. It's got its own skeletons in its closet, sort of like I did that video on the silver tip ditch coupe. Well, this guy has his own issues as well. The timing cover gasket is just, it's ready to let go. It's been leaking. It is nasty. I'll do a video on it, but that needs to be done. The control arm bushings in the front are squeaking, so they're most likely going to have to get replaced. I'm going to have to kind of decide which route that I want to go there. So there's going to be a number of things to go through there. And one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys, well, got the wifey's E90 BMW sitting in the bay here. If you guys see all this, well, it's most of her interior. And for any of you guys that want to complain about doing a heater core in a Foxbody, well, I challenge you to do an evaporator in an E90 BMW. So this guy is ripped all apart. You take the dash out, you take the cage out, and you got to get the heater core or the box out. Sorry, the heater box. And well, I would have been putting it all back together. You can actually see the evaporator there. You can see how nasty that is. There was dye in the system. You know what? If you guys ever smell like a barn, at least that's the way that I feel that it smells like, is, you know, if you turn your vents on and you smell barn, like hay / like mice, refrigerant. So keep that in mind. That's bad. I got a brand new one. I wanted to do the heater core as well, even though that it looks really nice. And unfortunately, you don't know which core you got until you rip that thing out. So the one that I ordered was the wrong one. So now I'm at a standstill while I wait for Rock Auto to send me the correct one that's going to match. So even though that one looks good, the car's an 09 and I've gone this far, so why wouldn't I change it? So there you have it. I guess the upside is I get a little bit of a pause on this and I can focus on the Cali Coupe. So one other thing that's going to happen to the Cali Coupe is actually I just got some headliner material in, some black suede. So that's another project that's going to be coming up, or another video, I should say. So make sure you guys stay tuned in for that one. And if you haven't already checked out all the other videos on this car, you know, I've been slowly just kind of going through it and upgrading things and getting everything done. So you can see I got the yellow headlights in. That I actually did on a live video, and I'm really happy with the way that those turned out. I think they look even better in person. I feel like the camera and the video just doesn't even do them justice. Even when you turn, actually I'll turn the lights on now while the battery is still connected. So here we go. So at night, believe it or not, there's very little yellow that even shines, but it's super crisp, it's clean. I like it. You guys might not like it, but you know what? My car, I get to like it. So your car, you get to like what you do to your car. So with that said, I'm going to move these products off of the intake. They're really just there to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm going to be using. But now the name of the game is disconnect the battery, take the battery tray out, disconnect the grounds. I'm going to go over the coil cover. Starter solenoid is going to come off. I'm going to get the overflow tank, which I kind of just noticed now that it's actually sitting way over here. We'll get that off. There is a bolt that holds the proportioning valve that's up through the inner fender in the back of the strut tower. So we're going to take that off so we can actually, most likely I'm going to disconnect the master from the booster, and I'm going to kind of lay it into the motor as much as I can. Wiper motor is going to come off, the vacuum tree, map sensor, the bolts that hold the brake lines on the back, the switch for the HVAC, or not the switch, the vacuum tree slash backflow. What am I trying to say? This is like bloopers right now. One way, the valve for the HVAC. Get the thermactor stupid sensors on the back of the passenger side, strut tower disconnected, mass airflow harness, all that stuff. Whole air intake setup will come off, air box will come off. Funny enough, these rubbers already rotted, so it's going to come off real easy. We will undo the bolts holding the rad on here, and what we want to do is lean the rad in. We want to take as much little things out that we can and just kind of lean everything up against and pull it towards the motor as close as we can, so that way we don't got to pull the motor out to get this done. So that's enough of me describing and rambling on about what we're going to do. Now we'll do the time lapse, get ripping into this thing. I think within 20-30 minutes all of what I just said will be done and ready to go. And then we can start scuffing stuff down with the Scotch pad. Alright guys, so making some pretty good headway here. You can see that pretty much everything on the inner aprons, on the back side of that firewall, got the radiator pushed back, and you would have seen I did slow the video down when I had all the extensions with the 1/2 inch or 13 mil to go through the wheel up into the strut tower to get the master cylinder reservoir unbolted from the inside of the strut tower there, and I unbolted it from the back of the booster, so that's kind of up, and I'm going to get that even more out of the way. And you can see I'm just trying to create as much room as I possibly can in all of these areas. You got all the different little tools that I needed to use, a lot of 5/16, you got 9/32, you got quarter for the hood latch to get the cable off there. I'm going to show you guys a different way to route that when we're done to keep things a little bit cleaner. You know, Phillips 7/16, and everything came off reasonably well. The only ones that fought me was this guy right here that goes down into there, the bottom of the battery tray. So some vice grips, got that one out. These guys were busted off already, but amazingly enough, they came out okay. And this car actually still had the air silencer up in the fender well, so I unbolted that. It's dangling down there. I'm gonna have to get that out, and I'm most likely gonna have to jack the car up and probably gonna pull the inner fender. I'm just gonna delete the windshield washer fluid bottle, and that's just a personal choice because I never have windshield wipers. I'll have an emergency wiper in like the trunk, and I will put them on if I happen to get caught or whatever else, but otherwise it's Rain-X or I just don't drive in the rain. So I really don't need the windshield washer bottle. So by taking that out, I'll also be able to disconnect this wire. That's the last one that's kind of holding things up here. So we'll get to that. But now, what I want to point out to you guys, we talked about this, right? So we got a little bit of a bend in here that shouldn't be there from a fender bender. And if we look really close, you can see got a little bit of movement here on the frame rail on this side. And amazingly enough, there's a little bit of one over here. And it doesn't take much for this to happen, guys. A lot of our Foxbodies out there that have gotten into a fender bender would have this. We can tell this is still the original Rad Support in the front, and you know, it's not tweaked. The VIN number I thought the VIN number was still on this fender, but I guess it wasn't. Must have been another car. Can't always remember them, but okay, so front bumper cover has been replaced, and probably these two front fenders at some point, but it is what it is. That whole inner apron looks good. This one's a little messed up. This one just needs maybe a 2x4 and a big hammer treatment. We'll try and straighten that out some. If I can't get it this way, then what I might have to do is get it some this way, and then get the wheel, the inner fender out, and maybe do a little bit of tweaking from the back side as well. You can see we got a little bit of corrosion slash paint flaking here, maybe a battery acid leak or something happened at some point, but this is perfect opportunity to clean it up. Yes, does the battery box cover that up? Yes, but you know, we don't want to hide stuff. We want to fix stuff and make sure we have nothing to worry about going forward. So one other thing that I did is, I disconnected some of the main wiring harness, the one that goes for the engine and over to the passenger side fender well, just to get a little bit more slack, to move stuff over. Everything on the starter solenoid, like, it's all still hooked up, so it doesn't take much to just kind of put stuff, move stuff back over, hook it back up. And if you guys just kind of pay attention, here's all the nuts and bolts that I took out. If you guys don't know or haven't done this as many times as I have, then you might want to mark them, make a reference or put them down with the piece that you took them off with, so that way you know what you're doing when you're putting everything back together. I've done this enough that you could hand me any one of those and I'll tell you exactly where it goes. So one other little trick that we're going to be doing is the brake lines are normally, bolted up here and on that side as well. So we're just going to move them out of the way for the purpose of painting, but when we're done, we're actually going to tuck them underneath here. And they'll tuck in there nicely, nice and clean. I'll most likely do the same with the actual wiring harness, so that this back header panel is going to be nice, clean, and simple, much like on Project Come and Take It. Same idea there. So we'll get to that as we're going along, but just kind of wanted to give you guys kind of that midpoint update. You also notice that I did start going around. I had some Dawn dish soap. Dish soap works great when you're trying to like bust out some grease. I did spray a little bit of super clean in there as well. You can see how black my hands are. It's dirty in there, and to be honest, instead of using a washcloth, I used a purple Scotch pad, because why not start roughing up the surface while we're cleaning at the same time. Obviously that's not all I'm going to do. I just wanted to break down as much dirt and grease as I could now, so it just kind of makes things easier going forward. So the idea of the game here is going to be, again, like I said, prepping most of getting as much stuff out of the way as possible. Then I'm going to go and I'll be masking these fenders off all along their edges, so that when I start using the Scotch pad a little bit more aggressively in those areas, I don't start sanding stuff that I don't want to get scuffed down. So we'll be scuffing everything with a purple Scotch pad, and that way that'll prep the surface out the way that we need it. I'll be using some white primer once that's all scuffed and wiped down. Now you're going to notice, and you guys might run into this too, like they stuck some label here. I'm going to chip that off with a razor blade, because it's definitely not coming off as easy as I would like. Oh, there we go. All right, kind of lucked out with that. Anyways, we'll clean that up as much as possible. And then we got these stickers on the Rad Support. Now normally, if these were a little bit better, I would, I'd actually glue this back down, I'd mask these off, and I'd keep them, but the fact that you can't even really read them, they're gonna come off. You can buy these aftermarket. I think the font is a little off, but just make sure that we know what this guy is. So 2 pounds, 10 ounces of R12. And this is different depending on the year. So not all of these systems took the same amount of refrigerant. So it's always good to kind of know what's going on there, because with the R134, you'll usually fill up 80% of whatever the R12 recommendation is. So I'm going to keep this sticker so that I know, because guess what? this AC system actually needs to be charged. So I'm gonna hold on to that and we'll put it in a safe spot, a little battery tray. Knowing me, I'll probably throw it out, but anyways, we'll be able to work around that regardless. But it's just good to know when you need to fill everything up. It's been converted all over to 134. It's got all the proper fittings and everything else. And the AC did work when I first got the car, just probably sat so long and maybe a little bit went out, or hell, you know what? It could just be the pressure switch in the back. Maybe I'll do an AC video. I don't know if you guys saw my Instagram post that I put up recently, but I actually took the TIPS05E35 coupe out the other day, put about 60 miles on it, and it was hot yesterday. And that is a factory no AC car. Came from Canada, so people assume that Eskimos don't need air conditioning, but it actually gets quite hot and humid in the summers. So in my older age, I want to be able to enjoy this car a little bit more. And if it's hot out, or for whatever reason it starts to rain, just that humidity, or if I want the missus to come with me, she's definitely going to want to make sure that she stays cool. So I'm thinking about converting this guy over to an air car. I got everything to do it. Maybe if you guys want to drop your opinion in comments below, because, you know, it is a 20K original mile car, but you know what? It came with manual windows and locks. I already converted that over. So I think, you know what? I'm just going to go the rest of the way. And who isn't going to appreciate AC in that car? It's just, I'm going to have to take the dash out. But like I said, after working on that E90 BMW, getting the dash out of that thing, that's going to be a walk in the park. And now that I have AC functioning in this car, you know what? I love it. It's just, you don't have to worry. You want to cruise with the windows up and, you know, listen to your music and not worry about your windows being down or people looking at you sometimes. AC is a wonderful thing. So anyways, enough about that. Gonna get back involved in this. I think that's all the talking that I need to do. I'm gonna try and hit that and see if I can straighten it out before I get into the inner fender, just kind of see how it goes. And otherwise it's going to be scuff with the Scotch pad time lapse, and there's going to be a lot of masking involved here, so we'll get into that soon as well. But there you have it. And again, this took not even 30 minutes to get this far, so just to kind of put it in perspective for you guys. Pretty straightforward. I didn't use any of my Milwaukees. I got all the good tools that should be able to zip this stuff off even quicker, and here I am using socket wrenches and, you know, normal hand tools that anybody would have in their garage, or most people would have. Purple Scotch pad, nothing crazy. 360 grit, it'll work great with primer, and in reality with all the products that we're using, it's going to be good all the way through. You could go up to silver Scotch pad, but that's going to do the trick. I'm just trying to get this back part of the upper firewall already. You can see I've already gone ahead and tucked those brake lines underneath this area here. Now, one thing I did notice was a little bit of this lower part is a little jacked up, and that could be from a number of things. Right here, I would suspect when they changed the booster, they might have bent this. So, you know, you can get creative here as well in terms of how you want to get this all straightened up. I'll get a little bit of wood there. I'll just kind of keep prying. But over here on that back side, it was bent down. Same thing, got some pliers to straighten it out. Probably maybe a motor in and out situation type deal. And yeah, so you just want to go ahead and get everything straightened out. Again, now those brake lines are out of the way. You have a lot of area here to play with. What's going to happen is I'm going to back mask from the underside of this lip. So you're going to want to make sure that this is all really clean under here. And so I'm going to mask from underneath there, and that'll allow us to give us a whole nice area. So we'll be able to spray this whole upper half. I will block off all these holes from the back side from where I took the cowl vent off. So we'll back mask all these holes so we're not blowing a bunch of overspray up where we don't want it. And same thing, I'm going to mask off along these edges of the fender here, get these all protected, and clean them up just a little bit more and get those ready, and just kind of keep scuffing away. right, guys, so I did change my mind about one thing. And that is where my paint is going to stop on the fenders. And the reason for that is because this is actually a little bit yellow and I really want it to be white. I don't know what it is or why it's yellow in here, but this is bright white. This looks yellowish and I don't like it. So if you can see how I've actually rolled the tape, and what that's going to do is kind of give us a little bit of a blended line. And so what I'm going to do is pretty much just have the tape folded like that. So you can see how it's kind of rolled here. So this is going to allow me to spray, and we're probably going to see the same little ridge that was already here. You can see how there's like a dark ridge. I might get rid of a little bit of it, but for the most part, I think it's going to end up living there, and there's not much we can do about it. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for tonight. So this is my second day, just kind of like part-time. I'm working on a bunch of other things, and this is just one of those things that I like to come back to and leave and then just kind of rotate back and forth, so that way I can kind of just make sure that I don't get frustrated, make sure that I don't half-ass something, and try and give it as much attention as I can, and all of like the little grooves and crannies and everything else. You know, all the dirt in the engine bay is almost serving like a little bit of a guide coat. So you got to really make sure that, you know, if you see some dirt and, you know, you're not getting it out, well, that's just going to end up on underneath your paint surface. So that's the joys of the Scotch pad. You know, you can get it right into all these nooks and crannies. So make sure you do that, guys, and, you know, use your wash and wipe and keep washing, wiping, cleaning, sanding. I did take the hammer, and there was two little dimples on the top of the Rad Support. I got those flattened down as well, because why wouldn't I do it now while I'm in here? I still need to jack the car up, get the inner fender out, get the windshield washer bottle removed, and finish straightening up the inner fender apron there. You can see got everything pretty much cleaned up down there. A little bit more sanding to do. There's more like the color of rust just from me sanding on top of a bunch of the debris that was there, but we'll get that all cleaned up and ready for a nice primed surface. And you just got to remember, guys, if you have any deep scratches or anything, if you can feel it with your nail, you're going to see it underneath the paint. So make sure that you sand it enough where everything is smooth, and you'll end up with a pretty good result. So that's it. I'm going to call it for this evening. We'll come back out here tomorrow. It's supposed to be a rainy day, but should pretty much be able to get the rest of that cleaned up, get everything masked off, and depending on what the weather is doing, maybe spray the primer in there. And if everything goes really well, I guess I could, sweating up. And if everything goes really well, maybe I can get it painted, but we'll see how far we can go. Don't want to rush anything. Make sure that we get a nice end result. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, guys, here we are. It's the next day. Got that trod going. You don't want to get stressed out. So there you go. Don't need any copyright infringement going on. So I got the car jacked up here. Most importantly, I got the Mrs. E90 out of the garage. So the evaporator is changed. Now I just got to go down to my friend's shop and get that recharged, and hopefully that thing will be blowing cold and out of the shop. I don't even want to live that whole process of changing that thing over again, but it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead now and wash, finish, scuff. We're going to wrap everything in plastic and pretty much get to spraying some primer, let the primer set up, and then we'll be getting into some color and then to some clear. Whew. All right, guys, here we are. I originally hustled. I got this mass. I pushed it outside because I thought I'd be able to beat the rain. And well, if you look at the sky behind me, it doesn't look so good. So I busted my ass to get the car pushed back inside. And sure enough, this rain literally must have gone around me, or it hasn't started yet. So push the car back inside, threw plastic over the cars in the back. You know, it's really not going to throw that much overspray up here, but it's best to be safe than sorry. And I went ahead and I thought the camera was on, but the camera had actually died. And what happened was I went ahead and sprayed a little bit of gray, and then just kind of sprayed some in some of the open spots because, well, why wouldn't I use some of that up and, you know, fill any scratches and everything else. So I'm sorry that you guys didn't get to see that. Again, I was hustling. Now, if you guys are wondering how I mask things off, you can see here, I got cardboard behind this area, and there's natural flaps to keep dust and debris right here. So I've masked around those, and, you know, I've just massaged the plastic in all the places that I can to make sure that I minimize as much overspray as possible. So you can see, just gotta fix that one. And I might need to slightly push some stuff around, especially back in here. And we're not gonna be able to get everywhere, guys. Like backsides of the bottoms of these strut towers and everything else, not gonna be able to get in there. What helps is having a little piece of cardboard like this, and I'll be able to kind of push some stuff out of the way as I'm spraying and try and get as much coverage as I can. You got to remember, the factory didn't get full coverage everywhere either. We really just want to get coverage in the main areas that we're going to see. So now I'm going to go ahead and use this white primer on top of this gray because that's going to help us get better coverage with our white. So nothing fancy. I'm going to put, you know, 1, maybe 2 coats. We'll see how 1 coat goes. If I get really good coverage, then I'm going to leave it there. So if everything looks good after 1 coat, guys, I am not going to wait around. I'm not going to wait to sand this. As soon as this is down, I'm spraying base. And the reason for that is because if I spray this, let it dry, I'm going to have to scuff it. And I don't want to scuff it. I am taking the path of least resistance here. So as soon as this is pretty much sprayed down, it's going to be perfect to just start spraying that base coat. And then once that base coat tacks up, I'm going to spray the clear coat, and I'm going to do everything in one shot. Now, some people might argue this, but you know what? It works. So the other situation is that you would let it dry. And if there's imperfections, you want it fully dry before you sand it. And that allows you to, you know, get out light scratches or any other things that might be present. And well, in this case, I don't care about any of the light scratches. You're not going to see them. This is white. I literally just sprayed that gray down. So now I'm going to spray this, and we're just going to go for it, and everything's going to be fine. So let's get the paint party started and knock this engine bay out. All right, guys, so there we are. The primer is on. I'm going to go ahead now and shake up that white Oxford white. And this is Duplicolor that you can get from AutoZone. And it is the perfect match, so they say. And I'm just going to go for it. Like I said, there's no sense. You can flash coat primer, so why part of that flash coat couldn't you just put base down? Again, the only time you need to let primer dry and sand it is if you're trying to get imperfections out. So we're going to go ahead, shake this up, and start putting on the base coat. The nice thing about rattle cans, you can get down into all the nooks and grooves and crannies that maybe you wouldn't be able to reach normally. So it's kind of a convenience. Now you can get paint mixed up, more of a professional grade paint or an exact match paint from any paint supplier. Give them your paint code, or they can scan it with their scanning gun. And that way they'll be able to make you rattle can very close to the color that you're looking for. So anyways, I know I'm talking fast because I want to get this paint on. I want to beat the weather and I want to eat some dinner. So I'd recommend spraying down in the bottom of the frame rails first. Anywhere where you need your gun angled like this, do it while the can is full, because once the can starts to get empty, it's only going to want to work vertically. All right, guys, there we have it. We've done pretty much 2 coats of the white, used up probably 3/4 of the can, if not a little bit more. Went around, got all the little nooks and crannies you could probably see on the time lapse. And you just kind of take your time, go over things, and by the time you get like one side done, that Duplicolor stuff, or like any base coat, actually dries really, really fast, and you can't really mess it up. If you get runs in base coat, then you must have been trying to do it, or you accidentally had your finger or got distracted and just like blew without looking in a spot and made it run. But there we have it. Again, pretty straightforward, like I said. So we've done the primer, we've done the base, now it's time to do the clear. Now I showed you guys normal Duplicolor clear before. I had a can of that laying around and there actually wasn't that much left. So I went down to O'Reilly's and I picked up a larger can of 1K clear, and amazingly enough, the larger size can was not too much more than the smaller size one, and this one's a 1K clear, which means it's actually UV resistant, and it'll probably resist a little bit more heat than that other clear coat would, which is good for the engine bay, right? And we don't want things going yellow, especially because, well, it's white, and if you use kind of a shitty clear or shitty white, which will really be testing the quality of the Duplicolor here, is that this stuff can turn yellowish after time. So we're hoping it won't do that. I'm sure it's going to be fine. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'm just going to shake this up. I'm going to do a coat, just kind of get things tacky. And then I'm going to pour it on and let it dry. Go drink a beer, eat some dinner, and then be able to show you guys what the outcome looks like probably tomorrow morning when there's some sunshine out, although it's supposed to rain, but maybe there'll be a little bit more light, and we'll be able to reveal the final outcome of this engine bay all painted and cleared up. Nothing like the fresh smell of paint in the morning. You can kind of smell a little bit of the leftover in here. And here we are. Our engine bay is looking nice and shiny. I'm actually happy with the way that it turned out. Clear actually laid down really nice. It's a little bit more yellow than the rest of the car, but you know what? It's consistent. I just grabbed Ford Oxford White and said, you know what, I'm gonna roll with it. The tops of the fenders were a little bit yellow. If you guys remember, I opted to back mask up here. You can see that ridge that was kind of the previous blend line from whatever was done before. I can try and hit that with a little bit of compound, but it is what it is. The main thing is, it is all one color. It is shiny and looking pretty good. We got a lot of this straightened out here. There's a few things here that were just inevitable. Unless I took the fender off, I could have spent a little bit more time on there, but at least the panel's straight. You know, we can see our frame rail down here. That's nice and straight. This guy is straighter, as straight as I could get it with the circumstances of the engine and everything else being here. Not to leave you guys hanging, but again, I hope that this video was informative for you, both with the prepping, you know, working around the motor with it still in the car and all the wiring and everything else. And again, I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. So until next time, we'll see you guys here on the infamous project. Thank you again for all your support. Also, if you've watched all the way to the end, let me know how you feel about this longer style video. There's just so much information in here. I almost hate to split it up because I feel like when you're splitting stuff up, I don't know, it's just a pain. Sometimes you don't go back or you don't see. If it's longer, you can always go back and rewatch it. So I know there's pros and cons, but let me know what you guys think. It'd definitely be important for me moving forward. As you guys can tell, there's a lot of stuff that I get immersed in, and if I do these longer videos, then I can go more in depth and show you more of what's going on throughout the whole process. So thank you again, and we'll see you guys here next time on the infamous project.